See you on this side today, Chief. How you doing? All right, welcome everyone to the September meeting of the Cable Television Advisory Board. We'll begin with a roll call. Chief Buxton.
Present.
Lauren Byers.
Here.
Roni Camille.
Here.
Andrew Sonoda's here. Director Cummings will be is on his way, from what I understand. Let's see, we have a new representative from the police chief.
Yes, Captain Pat Hannon, Hannon.
All right. Let's see, Alderman Guevara.
Here.
Jennifer McCormick.
Here.
Nick Miserovich.
Here.
Cole Morgan just walked in.
Here.
There it is, yep.
And Gregory Rodriguez from the schools is not here. Chair rules that there is a quorum. All right, we had members of the public earlier, but I don't see them now, so we won't have any public comment unless anyone objects. Is there a motion for acceptance of the minutes from the previous meetings?
Motion.
All right, there's a motion to accept. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And since I wasn't here, I'm abstaining. Communications. We've all received a number of communications, I believe 2 from Comcast regarding some channel changes and other administrative things. Those were received previously by all committee members by email. Is there any discussion of those? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept and place on file?
Motion to accept and place on file.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, Mr. Painter.
All right. Thank you. Jeff Painter. Excuse me. Current balance of our operating account 2505 is $34,827.09. Our expenses for August 2024 were $122,955, and that breaks down to $21,359 for actual expenses, operational expenses, and $101,596 for our new Teleview system, broadcast system. We had 5,650 cablecast total between June and August. And of this, 167 live events. Public was 31, education was 26, and our government was 45, and then our high definition channel was 20. We had 5,650 playbacks, and this broke down to public 2901, education 831, and government 847, and our high definition channel 1071. Studio cameras. You approved this some months ago, and we have everything set up, to purchase these cameras. But because our financial, our fiscal health is not what we believe it should be, we have canceled the being on finance committee, because we have to go to finance committee for the cameras. Luckily, the cameras in the studio are still working. It's not critical. We've got to figure out how we're going to do this, but for right now, we were going to be on finance 2 weeks from now, and so we did cancel that for the moment, and we'll see that later. Our Teleview video system upgrade. The updated system was installed about 3 weeks ago and is up and running on our 4 Comcast PEG channels and via, our streaming platforms. In addition to Roku and Apple TV, we are now available, or will be shortly, on Amazon Fire TV, as well as on our own dedicated Nashua Community Media iOS and Android apps. As part of the upgrade, the HD channel gets its own community bulletin board. The HD channel 1073 had been sharing a bulletin board with the government channel since it went live last January. Another feature of our new system will allow live meetings to be closed captioned in up to two languages. We have been testing this new feature now and expect it to be active for all live Board of Aldermen and Board of Education meetings sometime in October, well before the new ADA requirement. Other meetings will follow after our initial testing. Aldermanic Chamber audio mixer and room 208. We are happy to report that the new audio mixer was installed by Key Code on June 27th. The mixer replaces a temporary one that was installed for use in the Aldermanic Chamber during the pandemic. The unit we required was adversely affected by supply chain issues and was only recently available again. On August 28th, Key Code made the necessary audio upgrades to room 208 as well, installing a new ceiling-mounted microphone system, and we are now ready to cover meetings there beginning this month. However, budget constraints could limit the number of additional meetings that we can cover in there, and that is going to limit us at this point. Due to the FY 2025 city budget constraints, our request last winter for a greater share of the Comcast franchise fees collected by the city has been deferred to the fiscal year 2026. Currently, approximately 1/3 of the gross revenues on the cable television portion of the subscriber's bill helps fund the city's PEG TV operations. 2/3 goes into the city's general fund. Cord cutting continued to erode franchise fees, our primary funding source. As can be seen in our account balance of $34,827, this has now become a critical factor in limiting our ability to operate. At the last CTAB meeting, the board discussed the need to create a subcommittee to discuss our financial needs and viability going forward. We suggest that this subcommittee be formed today. This would give us, the group, ample time to meet prior to our December CTAB meeting and the fast-approaching city budget planning season. Emerging City Leadership Institute. Dan Young has been selected to participate in the 2024 Community Media Emerging Leadership Institute, presented by the Foundation of the Alliance for Community Media. He will be attending via Zoom during the month of October. This program will allow participants to connect with peers to reflect on leadership strengths and challenges in the shifting media landscape, explore and apply the concepts of emergent strategy to leadership, hone abilities to build power and to recreate with others, contribute to a supportive peer group of community media leaders from across the U.S., and chart your next steps as a leader. The Institute includes 4 virtual interactive workshops plus peer coaching. And Pete?
All right. Moving on to the Education Channel portion of the report. I have a list there of what we did for the last quarter. June and July are always busy for us, especially June with the end of the school year, graduations, and then moving on into baseball season and such. So I don't know, I'll go through all of those, but we still continue to record public health matters with the Nashua Division of Public Health. Those are recorded every other week at the studio. Mentioned graduations. We were at Elm Street Middle School for the final day of classes there, and they had a specialized tour for the public just before it closed, a couple of weeks after school ended. And we did a nice sort of retrospective look at the middle school and the people that were going around touring it. They had folks there that had graduated as early as the 1950s that were in attendance there, so it was a nice event to cover. We did a couple of live meetings from the new McCarthy Middle School, and also were there for their first day of school in late August. Just check and look here, see if there's anything else special. Just busy. did want to also thank Jen McCormick. Jen agreed to be a representative to the from the Cable Television Advisory Board to the Education Channel Subcommittee. We had our meeting earlier this week at the school district office, so we'll leave it with that.
All right. We have a report from Nashua Public Television. Would you like to present your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bob Bartis, on behalf of BRB TV. As noted in our report, we continue to work with our existing hosts and cover the variety of topics that we do each and every quarter. I've listed the number of shows and hours that we were on. I did put an asterisk next to those numbers as we heard earlier. We have a new server and an upgrade, so we've took the numbers from the prior server with the new server, whether there were any shows that were either double counted or missed based upon the days and the crossover. The conclusion is our number of shows and hours on air are consistent with the same that we've had in all the past quarters. We continue to now have some new training for that new server and the TelView upgrade that we've had. We continue to run slides on Nashua Public Television, as well as promoting that through WSMN.live about the benefits of public access, use of the studio, free use of the cameras, and also that the shows are visible not only on Comcast Channel 6, but on NPTV6.live anywhere in the world, and are also available on Roku and Apple TV. So we continue to, every show that's recorded is then uploaded to those platforms. We have operated and monitoring a number of live cameras 24/7 throughout the city, which include the Nashua Center for the Performing Arts Center, Nashua Senior Center, River Cam, the Chamber of Commerce Bridge, the Nashua Library camera, the dam construction. There's a camera over at Mines Falls at the Pine Street Extension, number of Main Street cam as well. So you can find those on NPTV6.tv and on WSMN.live. We continue with our regular events, whether that is Mayor Jim Donchis appearing, Chief Buxton from the Fire Department, representatives from Nashua Police Department also come on to give reports. We broadcast that on public television. We had special live events for this quarter, including the July 4th flag raising ceremony, the Nashua Pride Parade, Nashua Summer Stroll, America's Night Out, the Strongman competition between Nashua Fire Rescue and Nashua Police Department. And we've also, especially during this quarter, every Tuesday morning, we have had live coverage on Nashua Public Television of every candidate that ran in this past primary election. All of the gubernatorial candidates came on and appeared for that show that was hosted by the Chamber and assisted monitoring and presentation with George Russell. So if I may have a moment. Anything else you want me to add? That's it.
All right, thank you. All right. Under old business, Mr. Painter, I think you addressed most of these in your report. Do you have additional things that you'd like to say?
No, I think I'm good. It's just, we've got the new business.
Yes,
But
which,
the old business, I think we covered everything there. Studio cameras, or franchise fee, the chamber mixer, and the TelView system.
Mr. Mazurich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick Miserich. I have a question for Mr. Painter. Looking through your budget sheet here, it seems that the number is, significantly lower than expected.
Yeah.
And it appears that the reason for that is we're spending faster than we're getting funds replenished.
Yes.
So when do we expect to receive those franchise fees monies?
That is going to be November, correct?
Yeah, we received Pete Johnson. We received our last one in August, so it would be 3 months from August for the next quarter. And if you take a look, the really concerning thing is the drastic reduction. Last year, on a year-to-year basis, the cable franchise fees went down 6.7-ish%, and they went down another 6.7-ish% in just the first quarter of this year, so.
Okay. So out of the 900,000 that we were expecting, it's going to be significantly less.
Well, we never expected 900,000. I'm not sure where that number comes from. It's appeared on the budget for several years now. Realistically, that's around 400 or 380,000. I think we've been spending more than that for several years now, and there are some sheets in front of you which can show what the expenses have been as opposed to how much money we've taken in franchise fees, given the 1.3% that we get.
Okay. Is there any way to determine where that 900,000 number came from? Because
I have no idea.
if we're starting with a bad
We
number for
present a
projecting
budget.
purposes,
Yeah.
we're never going to be able to
No.
adequately
It-
know where we are at the end of the
Right.
day.
We aren't the ones that prepared the budget. The budgetary numbers, and we had more input in the budget this time because Mr. Painter and I actually met with the mayor before the budget was prepared this time. But in previous years, the budget has been prepared outside of our discussion altogether. Hence why we aren't quite sure why that assumption was made. The closest that I can see is that at sort of the peak immediately after the signing of the new contract, that would have been approximately what we would have been expecting for, assuming that there had been a level number of cable subscribers paying the usual amount at the time of renewal. That should really have been adjusted down to have reasonable expectations. That's the difference between that 900,000 and, or at least as far as I can figure out.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Morgan.
Cole Morgan. So just to reiterate what I'm hearing, because this sounds pretty extreme. So we have 900,000 in the budget column, and actual year-to-date is 87,000
For the first quarter.
for the first quarter. This seems like a poorly laid out sheet.
And Mr. Painter and I are working with Director Cummings, who, hoping he will be here soon to answer some additional questions, to find out exactly what the real situation is. How much, so we are part of the city, but we have always been funded entirely by our special revenue account. The mayor prepared a budget that had a budgetary amount that now the special revenue account isn't going to cover. I don't know exactly where we stand as far as whether we are only able to access special revenue account or if the city general fund is going to cover some sort of difference. That's part of it. I would also say that part of the numbers here that we're looking at, if you notice, some of that is encumbered because it's going to be paid later to the public TV. So that hasn't left the account yet, other than that we know that we'll have to spend it over the course of the year. So that's already been taken out as far as that $34,000 number. Has already had that subtracted from the account. So I don't know if you have any insights that you could share with us from the mayor's office.
Not at this time.
Okay. So I think we've got we need to know more about the city budgeting process and where we actually stand within it. And that's why I was hoping that Director Cummings would be here.
And just a quick follow-up. So the 30-something thousand we have, $34,827 we have left, and we're running roughly $22,000 a month in payroll. So we have 1.5 months left before we can't cover payroll, theoretically, assuming we don't touch the encumbered funds. Is that correct?
That would be,
So this is a fairly dire emergency situation. Great.
All right.
That's it.
It's math.
We still don't have a Director Cummings.
He should be here in a couple of minutes, I think.
Right.
About 15, 20.
Could bring us back to something else briefly,
Oh,
if you want. Pete
sure.
Johnson. During the report, Jeff mentioned that we have closed captioning available now, and we're closed captioning today's meeting. So just wanted to show folks, hopefully, we'll get it up on our screen here.
Excuse me, Jeff, can you turn that on?
Okay,
Okay. I'll have to turn it on.
Chairman,
I-
all right.
Yeah. So as we can see on the screen, and hopefully Frank is also letting people at home see that, we're broadcasting and we're a little bit delayed.
Of course, there is a delay,
We're in that
yeah.
little bit of a break there, but you can see that the closed captioning is working. We can do a primary language and a secondary language. So from what Mr. Cummings has said, we may let the Board of Aldermen determine what the secondary language will be. Could be Spanish, or we could do things for other populations, special things in the city. So we could do Portuguese, which is another big language that's spoken in the city. We did a little test the other day with Nashua Public Television does a program with folks from the Public Health Department, and they have somebody that does a show in Portuguese, and we actually had it translating her Portuguese back into English, so it had English subtitles when she was presenting Portuguese. So just wanted to show folks, you know, some of the new things that we have with the TelView server, so.
Mr. Painter.
No, just one of the things about this too is, we have to build a library. As you see that, like, Director Cummings' name was spelled wrong. So we have to build a library of names, so the system knows it. When it hears it, it'll spell it correctly. So that's part of this whole process of testing, you know, building that library so it knows what proper words should be put in there. Certainly for names, for the most part.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. Director Cummings has arrived. So I think now is probably a good time to resume the discussion about the finances. And if, hopefully he has some insight that he can share with us as far as exactly what the situation is and how we can best address it.
Okay.
I guess we can do a quick recap for his benefit. So the budgeted amount that was in the budget for expected revenue was $900,000. Based on the first quarter receipts, I think it's safe to say it's going to be a small fraction of that over the course of the year. Okay. And between the expense of the new Telcaster system that's and encumbered funds already allocated, we are down to a fund balance of $34,000 with about $21,000 a month in salaries. That's dealing with the special revenue fund. The question, I guess, is how does this operation that has traditionally been funded by the special revenue fund interact with the city budget in general? And what have you had? I understand you've spoken with Mr. Painter, and do you have suggestions as far as how we should address this? what,
Yeah, so I'll take it from there. So Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. This I got on my radar yesterday or the day before, and I had a conversation with Mr. Ponart, and he and I discussed some ideas. Everything I would say right now is too premature to have any definitive conclusion or solution, but I think what we will do is work with the finance team to see if we can do a transfer. I need to check to see if how these funds are held is whether we can do it without legislative action with the Board of Aldermen, or whether we need to do a piece of legislation and actually transfer the funds that you have in reserve, which is what you'd need to do, to one of your other line items to cover your costs. Now, that's just to handle the immediate issue. I think there's a longer-term strategic issue that I think this body is well aware of, and the mayor is aware of, that the fact that how the market has changed so much is going to be a question of how this group and the services it provides wants to operate in the future. And so I think that's a longer strategic question. One of the things I recommended to Mr. Ponart was that this group not meet quarterly, or at least a subcommittee of this group start meeting more regularly to address this issue. And hopefully have some sort of plan in place for the next time this group would be coming back together, which I think would be in December if you continued with your regular cadence.
yes, whether we actually change the frequency of the meetings or have emergency meetings, I think we do need to be much more frequent in monitoring this.
And so I guess my question to you would be is, do you want to do that as a committee of the whole, or do you want to do a subcommittee and have 2 or 3 people working on this? I defer to however you'd like to do it, but that would be my recommendation.
Any discussion?
Jen McCormick. Relative to the question of full body or a subcommittee, I think it's a lot easier to get a quorum of a subcommittee, and work can proceed much more quickly that way. And then that subcommittee would have recommendations potentially in December to bring to the full body for discussion.
I think that makes sense. I would suggest that of that subcommittee, at least several of the members have some experience with city budgeting.
Agreed.
Mr. Morgan?
Question for Director Cummings. Is there a useful deadline that we should keep in mind to have recommendations, obviously other than the 1.5 months of financial runway we have, that we need to get things in?
If I may. So again, Tim Cummings, what I would suggest is by December, because part of this conversation is going to be the revenue split. And, as you know right now, there was a request, I think, last year, and just due to timing, that revenue sharing model did not change. And so just even addressing that one very issue, I would recommend that you have a plan in place for December before the budget season actually really begins.
Any other discussion? I guess the next question, are there any volunteers who would be willing to serve on that budget subcommittee? Mr. Camille, Mr. Morgan, Ms. McCormick? All right.
And if I may, I would obviously be happy to, and I'm going to suggest that maybe Nick Misevich join me. So
Those
Nick
are
from
good additions.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to participate as well. All right, so I don't know if we require a motion, but let's have one anyway. Is there a motion to appoint the subcommittee as constituted by those volunteers?
So moved. Jennifer McCormick.
There's a motion, discussion of the motion?
A second.
All right, well, No discussion on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion passes.
And just one last comment, this will be a subcommittee that has to follow all of 91A. So just as a reminder for the body, it is a subcommittee of this, so you will have to follow all the RSA 91A protocols.
Jennifer McCormick, question for Director Cummings or the chair. Do those meetings need to be televised in the way that CTAB is? So we could meet in a different
And
location?
91A
or-
doesn't require being televised. It just requires that minutes be made and the meetings be posted for public with agendas.
Right.
Mr. Chair, question. 91A, through Roni Camille, does that 91A also offer provisions for virtual meetings, or is it in person?
It actually covers any communication that would constitute a quorum so like even if there were email chains going around, those would have to be preserved and available for public inspection.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, a quorum of the subcommittee would need to be physically present to be able to conduct the subcommittee business. If a member of the subcommittee wanted to participate virtually, they could, but they wouldn't account towards quorum. I think that.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry for answering the wrong question. Mr. Miserich.
Thank you. Nick Miserich. Just a point of clarification for the RSA rules. It's posting of the meeting notice and minutes. Agenda is not required.
Okay. Good clarification. All right. And I think that was it for new business. Still no members of the public present. Remarks by members. Mr. Camille.
Been on this board for serving, I think, close to 2 years, and I've been bringing this up every time. This is clearly, as Committee Member Cole Morgan mentioned, it seems like a dire emergency. We don't have much time, so, excuse me, we should probably get to work. I think a solution to this is having a discussion during the next budget cycle season to talk about this revenue split, this 1/3 and 2/3, and looking at the various provisions in the franchise agreement to raise the percentage to the maximum of 5%.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure that will be part of the discussion of the subcommittee. Any other comments by members? Mr. Morgan.
Cole Morgan. It strikes me how much great work is done here. I mean, every meeting we begin by speaking about the numbers of broadcasts we do, how many people tune in, really trying to quantify how much communication is broadcast and received. I'm just wondering if there's any other ways or if there's anything that we can begin to think about implementing that could really put us in a spotlight. I think that everyone just assumes public TV happens, and I think that after joining this committee, I've seen how much work goes into, every single one of these broadcasts that I think that maybe the members of the public or some of the aldermen may take for granted. I just wonder if, as we look at increasing our budget and going after larger sources of funding, is there anything we can do to help ourselves to kind of do some self-PR of what we do, what it really takes? I just don't know if there's any project or things that members can think about before the next meeting that we could do to really help ourselves and have people understand how important this is, how much good we do, and how critical it's going to be to make sure we're supported for the next, however long Nashua's going to be around, so hundreds of years.
I'll bring up, Pete Johnson, a couple of things that are going on just within the next couple of days. We'll be over at Stello Stadium tonight for the Exeter at Nashua North football game, and that will be provided live. And tomorrow, for the first time ever, at least our group is going to be doing the multicultural fair that's being held at the library in conjunction with, what's the name of the group, plus the National Public
The
Health
Cultural Connections
Cultural
Committee.
Connections Committee. So I believe they have over 40 groups that are going to be up on stage tomorrow from 11 to 4, and we'll be providing that information live on Channel 22, as well as the new HD channel 1073. So,
All right.
And just to add to that, Dan Young, our control booth for it will be in a very prominent location for those to see, right at the exit of the library, entrance exit of the library. So that was kind of also part of a decision to be made to help the public see what we're doing.
Mr. Painter?
Well, I just wanted to agree with Cole as far as, I don't know what the answer is as far as getting our, us out there more and people knowing, but just an example would be this last summer. The Board of Aldermen wanted to have 3 meetings in the new McCarthy School. And they just assumed, it wasn't even a thought for them as far as how we were going to cover that, but they expected it. And it was about $1,000 per meeting that we had to spend to cover those 3 meetings, as compared to $72 to cover the meeting in this room, because we have one cameraman, one videographer with 5 cameras. So I think they don't understand necessarily what it takes for us to be covering things.
I think raises a very good point, that the nature of what we do and the extent of what we do is ultimately a question for the elected branches of the city government. And since the franchise fee funding the special revenue account is diminishing and probably will diminish significantly, I have to say that the last quarter's decrease was much sharper than I anticipated, certainly. And it's a significant outlier. Mr. Painter provided charts to all the members that plot out the decreases over time. It's significantly greater decrease than average.
Dan made those.
Oh, Dan.
Just want to clarify that.
All right.
We all worked.
So I think that this is an opportunity for us to go back to them and say, before we were doing, or PEG was doing what we had been directed to do from the city government, elected branches, up to this point with the resources that were available. The resources are changing. Review what you want to have PEG do. What types of things that they need to do, and then we need to decide what the funding is for that. So, Mr. Morgan?
Cole Morgan. Have we ever had the alderman body come for a tour for to the studio, or is it something that we could arrange to have maybe almost like an open house for those folks and for anyone? I feel like, again, the first time I was in there, I was really surprised and blown away. I think it could be a really great chance to
I think
get their eyes on
had
it.
that in the past, but I'm sure that the Board of Aldermen has changed in composition significantly since that happened. So
We could do that, yes. That would be perfect. Yep. Jeff Painter, I'm sorry.
all right. Any,
Mr. Johnson, I just wanted to say, as far as that subcommittee is concerned, I'm sure one of the staff members, probably should be on that for historical purposes, if nothing else, on the budgeting process and stuff from our end. So I would do that if the committee so desires, or Mr. Painter, so.
I'm thinking it probably should be Mr. Painter, given his relative position in the structure.
I was planning on it. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully, if you guys accept me.
And I don't know that it would necessarily be as a member of the subcommittee, because he's not a member of the
Right,
committee.
right.
But certainly would be looking for staff support. All right. Any other remarks from members of the committee? Seeing none, is there a final motion?
Motion to adjourn?
There's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.